Lichfield, Michael Fabricant. Michael, first of all, let's focus on PMQs. Boris's last outing as Prime Minister in that particular big parliamentary event. How did it go?
Well, it was a zonker of a one. I mean, I must say, he came out there fighting and biffed, you know, and poor old Keir Starmer. I mean, that sort of North London nasal whine, and all he could do was carp. I mean, the Speaker came on earlier on and said, look, before this all begins, this is the last PMQs with Boris Johnson. Let's just be nice about it and all the rest of it. Like heck, it just went wild. And what was really revealing was at the end, when Boris said, well, Mr. Speaker, hasta la vista, which I thought was a good way of saying goodbye. We all stood up and applauded, and normally we don't like applauding in the House of Commons. And Labour just walked out. I remember, God, I'm sounding an old git now, but I remember when Tony Blair left and, you know, he said, well, and that's it, and maybe we'll see each other again. And he walked out. And, you know, Labour Party stood up in government, and we as opposition showed respect and some affection, actually, if I dare admit it. And we all stood up and applauded too. You know.
Is that not revealing, though, that when it comes to Boris Johnson, Labour couldn't ever really get on the front foot because he had this huge personality? Despite all the crises in government, he was still like a lovable cartoon dog almost.
You're absolutely right.
Now you've got just, you know, just a wet weekend as his successor.
I think that the Conservative Party is going to regret the decision. But you know what really stuck under my craw, or whatever the phrase is? In my craw. What is the phrase?
In your craw.
In my craw. Thank you, Patrick. Well, I tell you what stuck in my craw was that some of the people standing up, cameras follow me, standing up and applauding were the very ones who had knifed
they gave
Boris
him a
in
load
the
of books,
back.
didn't they? Churchill
Absolutely.
originals. I mean, Patrick, do you think, like Michael, the Conservatives have shot themselves in the foot? Because not only have they managed to boot out the Prime Minister who got them the biggest majority in a long time, but there was also this one candidate who had really captured the hearts and minds of a nation, who actually had even inspired people on the other side of Parliament, on the opposite Green benches, in the form of Kemi Badenoch, and she was unceremoniously booted out.
Yes, I think, you know, Kemi did herself a load of good in the campaign. Most people obviously hadn't heard of her, but she did this very unfashionable thing of arguing from first principles, from Conservative principles, unashamedly, unapologetically. And I would suggest for most of the last, well, since David Cameron came in, sort of 15 years or so, the whole history of the Tory party has been making accommodations with its enemies, usually on the progressive left. On the Brexit thing, it was UKIP and later the Brexit Party which forced the Tories to do something they didn't want to do. But with Kemi, you know, she's unashamedly explains Conservative principles, whether it's a small state or supporting the institution of the family or being proud of the nation. And it's turned out it's not toxic at all. And I must say, I find the remaining three candidates they're very underpowered, very underwhelming at best. And as Michael was saying on PMQs, if you actually read it through in Hansard tomorrow, you will think that Keir Starmer won because he had so much ammunition, but he delivered it so badly. And all anyone will remember from the exchange, I think, is Boris calling Keir a pointless human bollard, right?
And we all childishly started shouting out, bollard, bollard.
I mean, Michael, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you're not exactly short of personality yourself, but apparently your boy Boris is allegedly backing on the quiet Ms. Truss, who, when it comes to the three candidates, hardly, you know...
Well, that's news to me. I've not heard that. Of course, I'm backing Penny Mordaunt. And Patrick and I had fisticuffs outside, you know, when I said that.
He exaggerates a little.
but we had a lively discussion about this. And, you know, I think Penny Mordaunt is the one that they or the other candidates fear because she has got personality. But as Patrick was saying and you were saying, you know, they sort of feel they need to moderate their personality a bit because they're a little bit nervy about, you know, not offending any other MP who could be voting for
What do you
them.
make of these allegations of dirty tricks as well? This idea that Sunak supporters have been lending votes to Truss to knock Mordaunt out. I mean, that's just politics, isn't it?
Well, there's that. And And, you know, this may be going on or may not be going on. I think it was going on. But what's far worse are these sort of orchestrated panic by the other candidates coming up with things about Penny. Oh, she was lazy. Oh, she's into trans issues. Oh, well, I mean, for heaven's sake, the woman was in charge of minorities and equalities. So she would be. That's her job to be.
I mean, they've all had a pop at each other, haven't they, Patrick? And essentially, that's got to happen. If you're going to battle it out on live television in leaders' debates, then you've got to be able to put air in between you. Was it a mistake, do you think, for the Conservative Party to agree to doing these leaders' debates, considering no one watching the telly could exactly vote, no one had a big red button to eject their least favourite candidate, and yet they've just torn themselves apart?
No, I don't think it was necessarily a mistake to do the debates. I think it was a mistake not to nail down the particular broadcasters about the format, particularly the Channel 4 one. And the candidates must take on their own chin what they've said about other candidates, some of which is indeed quite unwise. And I noticed a quote that Tom Harwood had this morning from the Penny Mordaunt camp saying that Liz Truss is not capable of beating Labour at an election. Now, that's not something that a senior candidate should say of another candidate, because if Liz Truss wins, as she may well do, Penny Mordaunt really then can't, in all honour, accept a job in her cabinet.
Well, in fairness, Patrick, that's not exactly what she said. She was merely quoting. There's two issues. One, she was quoting a YouGov poll, which actually did say just that. So come on. If I was standing for leadership and YouGov said, hey, Michael Fabricant is by far the most popular person, you think I wouldn't say it?
It still is an incompetent thing to say. She should have just said, I believe I'm much better equipped to beat Labour, not that Liz Truss can't win a general election.
Well, it wasn't just Liz Truss, it was also
She said the
Sunak.
party was murdering itself. I mean, there's big hullabaloo over that. I don't care. I don't think we should be so sensitive over language.
And we've got to get together again. And this is my big fear, because I worked in broadcast engineering, and before that as a broadcaster before I came here. You wouldn't believe that, would you? But anyways, I then got elected in '92 because I couldn't think what else to do. I'd sold my business to an American company, and I thought I'd only be in for 5 years. And the loathing, I mean, fear and loathing in Las Vegas, the fear and loathing in Westminster was unbelievable. And why? Because they were fighting over who had knifed Margaret Thatcher in the back in the last Parliament. And I hope that's not going to happen now over Boris.
Well, I'm going to be pressing my big red button, ejecting you both, because we've got to go to a break now. But lovely to hear both of your thoughts. You've made this opening part of the programme pretty exciting. Thank you so much.